In this special series of Afternoon Large, you'll hear from participants in our Menzies Early Career Network, a program for university students to learn, research, publish on a topic of Australian contemporary history and liberal thought. The students' essays will be published in a new book, Menzies Rediscovered, a new generation's inspiration for political philosophy, domestic challenges and foreign affairs, in March 2026. Well, today I'm joined by Molly Doran, who participated in the Menzies Early Career Network and during the program wrote an essay on understanding families as homes human. She has just graduated from Campion College, where she completed her bachelor's degree in liberal arts. So a big congratulations to you, Molly.
Thank you.
Now tell me, why did you want to participate in the Menzies Early Career Network, Molly?
I honestly, early on, didn't know all that much about Menzies. I was drawn to the program because I was interested in history. I was keen to take on a research project and meet some other people that were also interested in researching Australia's history. So I was definitely drawn to it for the history side of things, maybe not as political. And then since joining the program and learning more about that period of Australian history, I'm really, really grateful that I've gotten the opportunity to research such an important time that I definitely did not know enough about before the program.
Yeah, well, that certainly is part of the reason for the program, is giving you an opportunity to learn about the Menzies era and how it set up modern Australia. You've chosen the topic of family and homes human, which comes from Robert Menzies' Forgotten People speech. Why did you choose this topic of family as part of Menzies' political philosophy and, of course, as part of the policy making of the Menzies era?
Yeah, I was drawn to the family as a topic because, partially for my own interest, Menzies has an interesting connection between independence and individuality and how that fits within a family system, mostly because we all need support sometimes, even as individuals, even as independents. And he saw the family as that unit which would offer the support. So as a young person, I think that it's worth researching. I think that it's worth exploring how the family has developed in Australian history and maybe why it's not as much of a modern topic today.
No.
Menzies speaks of homes, and part of my research was comparing how that has now changed to households. So there's even a different wording in the public sphere.
I think that's really interesting. I thought your chapter was fascinating in how you identified that shift. I think it was in the budget statement, was it, that the current Prime Minister made? He talks about households, and it's a very sterile term. A household gives you, the word to me, you think of a house, and I actually think of a kind of a cartoon image of just a house and then just sort of stick figures. That's what it means to me. Whereas a family, I can see, a mum and a dad and some kids and a dog or something. Like I see people, I see, flesh, human flesh and kind of love. Yeah. And yes, families come in all shapes and sizes, but household is sort of an economic unit.
Exactly. It's property-centred. It's not people-centred.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me about the evolution of that term? Where did we go wrong from Menzies talking about families to Albanese talking about households?
There's so many steps along the way. I think, part of the reason would have to be that households now don't necessarily consist of a traditional family. So today a household can be a group of people that don't necessarily fit the mum and dad and 3 kids ideal. So to keep talking about a home in that traditional family sense maybe isn't as reflective of what the policy aims to achieve. So I think that's part of the reason why it's changed. So the use of households now, though, can refer to one person over the age of 15, as opposed to a home which, like you were saying, is very much warmth and family, whatever that may look like. It's people oriented.
Yeah, yeah. You referred earlier to this idea of Menzies as promoting liberal, like individualism, that, it's freedom of the individual, freedom of their thought, of their conscience, of their speech, of association, those ideas, religion. But then he talks a lot about the importance of family, of responsibility for your children, of educating your children. Ask not what society can do for your child, but what your child can do for society, this sense of civic responsibility. I mean, do you think that Menzies' emphasis on families qualifies or I guess overrides his focus on the individual? I mean, how do you marry the two?
Yeah, it is a bit paradoxical. I think absolutely not, at least the way that I found it to be in my research. The individual is meant to be a free and independent unit for Menzies, but as in practice, not everyone can do exactly what they want at all times. Otherwise, you'd end up with chaos. So the family unit for Menzies was kind of a organizational structure for those independent units. So it instilled consistent values in society. So the independent units that were supporting themselves, that were self-sufficient, they would be raised with those values in the family. That's where they'd get them from, which was obviously quite important for the society that Menzies was wanting to build, which was, yes, about independence, but also about self-sufficiency. So the family unit doesn't take away from the individual and the independence of the individual. It's more of the necessary structuring of how individuals should exist in a society. You can't help everyone, and sometimes you do need help. So the family unit being the place to give that help was supporting the individual, really.
What about this idea of the independence of families being seen as a sort of defence against the threat of socialism, the overbearing state and communism, which of course was a real concern in the 40s and 50s and 60s?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially, for Menzies, the referendum where they tried to change the constitution to get rid of the Socialist Party. Very, very prominent in Menzies' ideas. The family, like I was saying, is important because it means that you have a place to go to for help, for assistance when you need it, that isn't directly to the state. You don't end up in a position of state welfare. You end up being supported in a family unit that doesn't necessarily rely on the state for its welfare. It will instead turn to the family unit. So in that way, the family unit combats socialism because it offers an alternative to state welfare, which is a step on the pathway to becoming socialist.
Menzies was well known for, and it was unique at the time, for his policies that really focused on women, and he campaigned directly to women, took the female vote very, very seriously. And this was quite different from the Labor Party at that time, which was a party of the workers. And because women weren't really in the workforce, it was the party of the working man. And so this was quite novel to see Menzies campaigning to women on women's policies. And you see the introduction of policies like child endowment, which was paid directly to the mother, not to the family unit or the father. How do you see those sorts of pro-female policies as supporting family formation and the growth of families?
Yeah, I think Menzies was dealing with a post-World War II society, and during World War II, a lot more women had entered the workforce. The independence and importance of women in society was beginning to become a pretty prevalent topic. And so Menzies paid child endowment to the direct caretaker, which was the woman in the family. He also, in some of his speeches, acknowledged the amazing work that women had been doing through the wartime period in paid work as well. So it wasn't that he was trying to pigeonhole what women were capable of, but I think that he saw that the woman and the mother in a family was a crucial piece of the family unit. And by paying the child endowment funds to the mother, it's a recognition of her place in the family and her importance in the family unit.
What about other factors of the era, like, affordable housing, home ownership rapidly increased during the Menzies era, and there was just overall prosperity, wages were increasing, disposable income was increasing, unemployment was incredibly low. Do you think those sorts of factors contributed to higher birth rates of the era and family formations more so than policies like child endowment?
It is definitely possible. I don't think you can pin it down to any one factor. I think to say that it's just child endowment or just the tax deductions that were put in place to support families with more children, I don't think you can say it's just that. I also don't think that you can say that it's just housing or just wealth. The birth rate definitely dropped through the Great Depression, really record-breaking lows through the Great Depression, and it did raise once the Australian economy had stabilised. So there's definitely a correlation there. But I think even the rhetoric, the conversation which child endowment started would have been important in raising the birth rates to the record-breaking high that Menzies did get them to, or that they got to under Menzies. So I think all the factors working together made a huge difference to the birth rate compared to the low of the Great Depression. It was a huge increase.
I think it was 3.56 from memory in the mid-1950s, which, today it's about 1.7. So it's, a lot higher. What about the introduction of no-fault divorce on families? I mean, he does that. It tries to make divorce laws uniform around Australia. Probably a bit of a challenge to his reputation as being very pro-family and in today's parlance a conservative. It challenges that stereotypical view of Menzies, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The no-fault divorce clause that he did actually vote for, he himself voted for the introduction of that clause. It didn't have an immediate effect on the divorce rates through that era. Statistically, it didn't really change anything. But obviously, it was a step in the direction of the No-Fault Divorce Act that was later introduced. And that saw a huge spike in divorce that hasn't completely returned to the rates that it was before the introduction of that act. So although Menzies wasn't directly responsible for that act, which has raised divorce rates, the inclusion of that clause can be seen as a step on the path to that act. And it is definitely challenging to hold that up against his other pro-family policies and rhetoric. The divorce rates being really, really high has led to a lot of broken families since the 70s. And that's not in line with what Menzies wanted. But it's also potentially a little bit presumptive to think that he knew what the inclusion of the no-fault divorce clause would do. I don't think he would have expected the unprecedented rates of divorce to follow.
I guess he potentially was balancing the demands of individuals and their freedom, and with an emphasis on families. And there's, they do sometimes come into tension. Molly, huge congratulations on the chapter and your work in the Menzies Early Career Network. I thought it was really, really interesting and a reminder of a different political discourse of times gone by and the absence of it today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fantastic to research it. It's amazing how much has come from that period in history.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this special series of Afternoon Light, featuring interviews with participants in the 2025 Menzies Early Career Network. To follow more of our work, make sure you subscribe to this podcast and explore our other content at the Robert Menzies Institute website, robertmenziesinstitute.org.au.